Stop acting like speed is just a bonus and depth is some extra comfort. The Chargers are in a real battle to give Justin Herbert an offense with bite, not one that has to ask defenses for permission. There is an explosive rookie who fits Mike McDaniel perfectly. There is a serious tight end visit on the table. There is a dangerous conversation around a veteran wide receiver. And there might be an emergency shield for an offensive line that already took way too much damage. If you ride with this team, subscribe right now and get in the fight, because today, the pressure is real. Now this is the part that makes me crazy when people only look at this offense from the surface. Some fans are acting like Brennan Thompson is a small move just because he was a fourth-round pick. Really? This dude led the SEC with 1,054 yards, broke Mississippi State's single-season record, ran a 4.26 at the Combine, and now lands in an offense that will be designed by Mike McDaniel. That is not roster filler. That is a weapon. The Chargers spent 2025 trapped in a frustrating spot. Herbert was still producing, still finding touchdowns, still keeping this team breathing, but the explosion vanished. Ladd McConkey was outstanding as a rookie in 2024, putting up 1,149 yards and 7 touchdowns, but he fell to 789 yards the next season, in an offense where nobody even got to 800. And before anyone tries to dump that on him, hold up. When the structure gets heavy, predictable, beaten up, and does not scare defenses enough vertically, everyone loses oxygen. McConkey did not become the issue. The issue was defenses playing without enough fear. That is where Thompson starts making noise before he ever takes a real snap. Field Yates of ESPN called that pick one of his favorite fourth-round selections, and he went right to the fit with McDaniel. And honestly, it makes too much sense. McDaniel lived in Miami with speed-changing angles, opening grass, stretching safeties, and creating that quiet panic before the ball was even snapped. Thompson does not need to walk in as the #1 receiver. He needs to force defenses to respect the idea that one play can wreck them. Now yes, the physical part matters. He is 5'8". He was the lightest player at the Combine at 164 pounds. And the Chargers have to be smart with how they use him. You cannot just throw this kid into traffic all game like he is some secret tight end. But motion, slot work, stacks, vertical routes, design screens, space, now we are talking. Darius Davis is going to fight for those snaps too. And that competition could be exactly what this offense needs, because it forces the roster to find real usable speed, not just spreadsheet speed. The aggressive read is simple. If McDaniel presses the right button, Thompson could be the piece that brings fear back to the deep part of the field. And once the deep field opens up, Herbert punishes everything underneath. And if the first story is about speed tearing the field open, this next one gets heavier, more physical, and much closer to the goal line. David Njoku visiting the Chargers is not one of those names you throw on the screen just to fill space. It is a message. It is Los Angeles looking at this offense and saying, Herbert took too many hits, carried too much weight, and still needs that physical target who can turn a broken play into a touchdown. Let's remember the full picture without making excuses for anybody. For the second straight year, the Chargers finished 11-6 and got knocked out badly in the first round. Herbert took a beating in 2025, especially with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt hurt, and with the interior of the line falling short. Even through all of that, he threw 26 touchdowns in 16 games. That is the kind of number that should embarrass anyone still trying to minimize this quarterback. The guy stood in the middle of chaos and kept throwing, but a playoff offense cannot survive on hero ball every single week. Oronde Gadsden II was a really interesting find. 49 catches, 664 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 13.6 yards per catch. For a young fifth-round tight end, that is a real signal for the future. Charlie Kolar comes over from Baltimore with more of a blocking profile. Useful, physical, the type of player who can handle the dirty work. But when Njoku enters the room changes. Because he is not just a big body, he has real production behind him. 384 catches, 4,062 yards, and 34 touchdowns in 9 seasons with Cleveland. His 2023 peak was strong. 81 catches, 882 yards, 6 touchdowns, Pro Bowl. Then the last 2 years came with physical limitations and less explosion. 23 combined games, 97 catches, 798 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And that is exactly where a lot of people get the read wrong. No, you do not pay him like you are getting absolute peak Njoku, but you also do not act like a tight end who has found the end zone in 7 of 9 seasons has no value for an offense that needs to finish drives. Mike McDaniel has already shown he knows how to use a veteran tight end aggressively. Jonnu Smith became a Pro Bowler in Miami in 2024 with 88 catches, 884 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So why not test that kind of fit with Herbert? Picture Gadsden attacking downfield, Kolar holding up blocks, Njoku threatening in the red zone, and McDaniel moving pieces around without tipping off the defense. That is not a luxury. That is removing predictability from an offense that needs to stop apologizing for having talent. If his body checks out and the price is not ridiculous, Joe Ortiz has to move with hunger. Herbert does not need another pretty promise. He needs a real answer. Now I am going to say something that might annoy part of the fan base, but somebody has to say it. The Chargers cannot step into this next phase pretending the receiver room is finished just because there is interesting youth. Youth is great, potential is exciting, but January does not reward a roster that only looks nice on paper. January exposes who has answers when the game gets tight, physical, and ugly, with corners jamming at the line and safeties squeezing windows. Ladd McConkey is the best receiver in this group right now. That should not become some empty argument. He has already shown route running, intelligence, separation, control, and chemistry with Herbert. Quentin Johnston is still trying to turn flashes into weekly respect. Keandre Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris are going through the natural process of adjusting to the league. Brennan Thompson brings ridiculous speed, and I love the thought of him inside a Mike McDaniel offense. But there is a difference between liking the future and building an offense ready to punch the AFC in the mouth. That is why Jauan Jennings enters as a possibility that deserves some real noise. Not because he is some magic savior. Not because he arrives and erases everybody else. The appeal is the profile. Jennings is the kind of receiver who does not play pretty just to make a spreadsheet smile. He plays heavy. He blocks. He fights for yards. He absorbs contact. He can be a trust target on third down. And for a team trying to get past the wild card round, that kind of player carries real value. Look at the difference in roles. Thompson threatens the deep field. McConkey breaks coverage down inside. Johnston has to keep chasing consistency outside. But Jennings would bring an adult presence, an irritating problem for defenses, and someone who does not disappear when the game turns into a fight. And honestly, Herbert deserves that kind of piece. You cannot ask him to carry pressure, improvisation, perfect reads, and then pull miracles out of a group that lacks a reliable, physical veteran on the perimeter. There has not been an update on Keenan Allen's situation in this context, and I respect everything he means to the recent history of the Chargers. But roster building is about timing, not endless nostalgia. If the path is to turn the page, Los Angeles has to do it aggressively, not with pretty speeches. I want to see the Bolts war room in the comments. Would you rather keep leaning into the development of the young guys or bring in Jennings to toughen up this offense right now? Because to me, the answer comes down to ambition. A team that wants to survive in the playoffs does not build only with promises. It builds with teeth. And now we get to the least glamorous part, but maybe the most serious one of all. If the Chargers learned anything the hard way, it is that offensive line depth is not an August detail. It is survival. Everybody loved the idea of having Rashawn Slater on one side and Joe Alt on the other. On paper, it looked beautiful. Two high-level tackles, Herbert protected, and the offense built on a strong base. But paper does not block a pass rusher when both guys get hurt early and the backup plan turns into panic. The season showed that in the cruelest way possible. Los Angeles finished with the worst offensive line in the NFL in that situation, and Herbert paid the price with his body. That is the kind of mistake a serious franchise cannot repeat while looking at the ceiling and hoping for luck. Luck does not block an edge rusher. Luck does not close an angle against the blitz. Luck does not stop your quarterback from getting up slowly after another hit. That is why Broderick Jones shows up as a possibility worth discussing with a cold head and real ambition. He is not coming in to take Slater's job. He is not coming in to jump Joe Alt. Nobody is pretending that. The conversation is different. Turning a former Steelers first-round pick into a swing tackle, the kind of player who can step in when disaster knocks without making the entire protection plan collapse. And for anyone who thinks that is a small thing, I have one question. How many times does the Chargers season have to be affected by offensive line health before fans accept that competent backups win games too? Slater has an injury history. Alt also got hurt early. When both are healthy, great. Los Angeles has a very strong foundation. But the roster cannot be built like the perfect scenario is guaranteed by contract. Jones would not be a risk-free bet. The whole reason he is being discussed as a movable or adjustable piece is that he has not become the dominant starter you expect from a first-rounder. But there is a massive difference between asking him to be the franchise anchor and asking him to be a backup tackle with physical talent, experience, and a better ceiling than emergency patchwork. That difference is enormous. Joe Hortiz has to treat this as protection for the most important investment in the organization. Justin Herbert is not just the quarterback. He is the real chance to compete every season. So every move around him has to answer one simple question. Does this reduce the chaos when the hit comes? If Broderick Jones can be that aggressive insurance policy, this franchise has a responsibility to investigate. Because real contenders do not wait for the injury to happen before they start searching for the answer. In the end, all of these stories point to the same demand. The Chargers have to stop building an offense like Herbert is supposed to turn problems into miracles. Thompson can bring real speed. Njoku can bring red zone presence. Jennings can bring playoff toughness. Broderick Jones, if that opportunity exists, can keep one injury from wrecking the entire plan. That is what ambitious teams do. Add layers, reduce weak spots, and raise the fear level for everybody else. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because Los Angeles cannot just compete, they have to attack the AFC.